Welcome, everyone, to another episode of HR and Payroll 2.0. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the very busy and the very legendary Julie Fernandez. How are you, Julie?
Hey Pete, doing good. It's spring has sprung,
I
and
know.
so it's exciting to actually get a little bit of sun rays here and there.
Yeah.
And it's almost lunchtime, and I know that will come into our guest introduction in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah. How you been, though? You doing all right? I know you've been busy. You've been heads down with demos and all kinds of use cases, I think, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Clients are busy looking
I
and
love it.
evaluating, and I know we'll do a news episode soon because there is just so much going on in the market.
Yes, we are. That's another thing we have to figure out after this. And so, yeah, I'm excited. But today we have a guest, and I'm really, really excited to talk about this subject. Today we have Maurice-O'Leary, the founder and chief wellbeing officer at the Bolognese Philosophy. She and I got introduced in Long Beach, California, at the Rethink HR Tech conference. We started talking about wellness, and I was like, "You got to come on our show, Kaz. I think there's a lot we could share." So, welcome. Really excited to have you.
Lovely to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So look, we ask every guest who comes on the show, how in the world did you land in the world of HR, and what on earth keeps you here? So I'd love to start there.
There's a part of me that also believes that no matter what kind of team role you're in, there's an element of HR that we're thrown into, right? From a way of environment or people dynamics or welfare. But I was first fully thrown into it when I started my own agency in my early 30s. And so anyone who's run a small business, you're doing all the roles, and HR was one of those that was thrown upon myself and my co-founder. So in my early 30s, a deep dive and a quick learning cliff on that one as well. And then from there, being a wellness speaker in the space around people experiences and burnout prevention automatically lands me into the HR realm. And I stay here because it's people. And
Yeah.
what is more important than the wellness of the people around us that we work with every single day? It's our human experience.
Yeah,
Amen.
absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead, Julie.
No, I said amen.
Yeah.
It's the people. It's always the people.
It is, right? We
Yeah.
can't transform without the people, and I hope that we're not losing sight of that in the AI sort of rush here. And I love that felt like a lot of the theme coming across in many of the speakers at Rethink HR Tech was don't forget humanity and all this. So I really love that part of it. That's great. So look,
Mm.
I got to know. Tell me a little bit about your passion for wellness in the workplace and what you're on a mission to do. And tell me about the Bolognese philosophy. Like, where did you come up with that name? How did that come about? And maybe we even need to talk about what the difference between spaghetti sauce and bolognese is, right? Because I always mess it up.
All the foodies have
Yeah,
just
yeah,
perked up. There you
exactly. So yeah, how did you get into this? Yeah,
I'll start. Well, as you know, all about people, and my mission is to not separate the health and 360 view of a human being and their ability to create and contribute and innovate. Those
yeah,
things for me are all connected, and somewhere along the line, I know we'll talk about this a bit today, we've kind of wobbled in that world. We've lost it somewhere where our burnout is the highest it's ever been. So the things that we're doing aren't working, and we really need to look at how we can create better environments and look after each other. The Bolognese philosophy is a way of coming in to truly ask some big questions. It is inspired by the fact I almost unknowingly missed the last meal of bolognese with my husband before losing him in an accident the following day.
oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And that meal was his home cooked bolognese. He
Yeah.
made the best bolognese.
Oh,
And I go back over that day and that moment and everything that happened over and over again. And if I had have missed that meal, like I was 20 minutes late getting home, but if I had have missed that meal with him, I really believe that the grief would have been, it's just so much more to process. And I just don't want anyone else to go through that or to miss that meal that is just so important, that human connection with the people that hold us up in our lives.
I love it. I love it. You've turned, positive, something negative into a positive. And yeah, you're right. I think it's those little things that we take for granted, and they add up, right? I mean, as an employee and as human beings, they add up on us. So I love what you're
Yeah.
doing.
it's a message that just completely resonates,
Yeah.
especially when you link it to the idea of, being a workaholic or placing a huge priority on your work life, which is
Mm.
something that at least several of the generations in the workforce right now have been conditioned to do, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And on that,
but
Julie, I ask her, there's two questions I ask, and I'd love your responses on these as well. It seems to just cut through everything to get to the heart of the culture and the way that we're working as individuals. And they are: one, are we getting each other home on time or just to the dinner table on time? Are we doing that? Question mark. And if not, let's break down where that's going wrong. And the other one is the way that we are working now the way that we would like our children to be working when they get to this stage?
Yeah. No.
that to me, Kaz, is like a two-edged sword, because when you think about it applied to your children, you might answer, well, of course not. I'd like them to have a better work-life balance than, maybe I think I have. But then when you apply it to your workforce and your teams, it's so easy to hear, generational comments made about,
Yeah.
the degree of commitment. And so it's important to flip it to that personal lens, I think. And it sounds like that's just what you're all about, Kaz.
Yeah, yeah, and I love when I kind of go in and talk and ask that one question, like, are we getting each other home on time? Because to your point, that the human aspect of that in a working environment makes us all just breathe a little bit, makes us all look at each other as human beings again, if we may have been going through a really stressful time at work. And I just see everyone take a big breath of like, oh, that's right, we're human beings and we're working
Yeah.
together. And you've got this life and I've got this life, and we're spending nearly all of our existing waking hours together from Monday to Friday. Okay, let's look after each other. Like, let's just get to the basics.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we don't we have and I think some of this is an American thing too, right? I mean, I'm sure country by country it's different, right? But there's a certain amount of societal norms, I think, in the past that were, you came to work, you worked hard, you did the job until the job was done, and you were just sort of a number in a lot of ways. And hopefully that's changing with some of the generational shifts and the attitudes towards work. But I mean, how do employers deal with all this? I think sometimes
Mm.
about it, like I look at, there's so many little issues: financial wellness, mental wellness, right? We've got, I mean, God forbid, we have people having to start to help their employees go across borders to fund, trips for abortions, which is insane, right? We have burnout. We have mothers who can't get childcare in order to get to work. We have, I mean, it just goes on and on. And I do think that there are some employers that think this is just some sort of fad or trend, like wellness, right? But I keep trying to explain, I think it's a conundrum that is literally at your doorstep, and you're almost going to have to solve it as an employer today. But like, what's the reality, Kaz? I mean, like, what's going on, and what do employers need to do or know?
There's oh my God, there's so much to unpack with this one.
I
The
know,
first,
right?
yeah,
Where do you
and
begin?
so
Where do we begin?
I think the first thing is to all get on the same page and to not let wellness sit in a separate bucket in a silo that is a nice to have or a treat. And I
Yeah,
feel like the word wellness gets that fluffy packaging sometimes. But if we start
yeah,
using things like welfare and health, mental health is health, and understanding that if people are showing up under our leadership and under our structure, Monday to Friday, nearly all the daylight hours that we have, we are, for a majority of people, we are under an obligation of care to make sure the environment we are providing is psychologically safe and a healthy place to be.
yeah, yeah. And they're
And if
bringing that
we,
stuff to work, right?
yeah, and there's so much going on. And to your point, there are so many forms of burnout. There is burnout of work. There is burnout from being a caregiver. There is burnout from being a parent looking after an elderly parent looking after small children. There is so much that goes on in us as human beings. But if we just come together as a workforce and look at how can we relieve some of that pressure and create a really healthy environment so that people aren't burning out, they can just be brilliant in the space that we bring them to every day. And
Yeah,
when you understand that, when you rest people and you have good leadership with timelines that are really thought through, that are going to rest and sprint and create all the brilliant innovation that we want, you're going to get amazing results. You're going to see it come, and it does come back to the data. If you look at a company and you can see how high their staff turnover is, increase in sick days, high achievers not making those promotional levels anymore, that's where we need to start unpacking where are things going wrong, like what's happening here, like understanding our processes and procedures to make sure we're creating the best environment for teams to truly thrive.
Yeah, agreed. Do you think employers, like I've had conversations with employers that say, look, or I've seen survey data where I've been working on wellness sort of questions and you get this sort of response of like, well, look, I give them benefits and I give them pay. They need to manage their life better. And like, what do you say to that? Like, how do you convince an organization that they need to think differently about the way they care for their people? And do they really have a responsibility? I mean, there's some that say it's not my responsibility, right? I do what I do, and that should be enough. But is it? I mean, how do you argue that? I guess.
Benefits and pay are not enough anymore
Yeah.
for it's just not. And you are creating, like, again, the entire human experience of our teams and our staff is happening at work. And
Yeah.
it's more than just this one way, hey, I'm paying you and I'm also giving you these benefits. Now, the benefits is a whole conversation in its own because a lot of some they are great and people are very thankful for them. But they are band-aids to what's truly happening.
Yeah.
There I went to Transform this year in Vegas, and it was amazing because I've seen this uprising and how many more specialist wellness work benefits and technology are coming in. It's a real rising up that's coming. It's giving me a really good optimistic view of where we're heading with workplace culture. But back
Yeah.
to your original question, which is it the responsibility? I understand what they're saying. Like, as individuals, as grown adults, we are in charge of our own well-being, 100%. But if people are spending a majority of their time living in under our leadership and our work structure and the conditions that we are putting upon them to complete work and answer emails and phone calls and 10 meetings a day while still wanting them to meet their KPIs, then that is our responsibility because we have created that structure and we need to understand what's not working from a psychological safety and health point of view.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, there's so many. You mentioned, I think that there's so many solutions, right? There, that can help employers, but like you also get that sort of burnout of like, okay, this is going to be another thing we have to manage, right? Another thing we have to deploy, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of silver bullet, right? I feel like it's more a total a total sort of effort, right? You're going to have to do. There needs to be some education, some training, maybe some support
Mhm.
systems, some mechanisms, benefits, whatever. Like what? Like where do you start if you're an employer? Like what do
Yeah.
you do? Where do you go?
You need to know your people. So first of
Yeah.
all, before like creating, a hard launch or finding something that one person in the company is like, this will be brilliant. Let's give it to everybody. Take a moment and take a breath and ask people what's working, what's not. I mean, it's the number one way of connecting and understanding, like, what do you need, what is working. And I know some really good companies do a lot of internal surveys, but also, get some of the smaller groups together and ask them what's working and what's not. I find when I go in to talk to companies, there's a bit of a mismatch or a misalignment between executive leadership and management roles, and then what's truly happening with the wider team. If you go in and you ask leadership and management, staff well-being, how good is everybody? They're going to come in with a much higher score than usually what's actually going on. So we need to get, and for many reasons that can happen.
Yeah.
Maybe the people. Please go, Julie.
I was just going to say, what I hear there is just a very strong acknowledgement that frontline workforce is oftentimes in a different space than
Mm,
your managers and your office workers, right? And
yeah,
that there's some special needs there, if you will, or a different approach or a different reality as well
yeah.
that employers should be looking at.
Looking for the inside scoop on payroll? Whether you're a payroll pro or just curious about your paycheck, we've got two podcasts you cannot miss. It's about payroll delivers the latest trends for payroll pros, and it's about your paycheck is here for employees, breaking down pay and rights in simple terms. Two great shows, two great hosts, and endless insights to keep you informed and empowered. Subscribe now and elevate your payroll knowledge. Brought to you by Work Defined, where payroll meets people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Kaz, do you think we talked? Even at some of the conferences now, right? We've really been talking a lot more, and I think it's a great thing. We're talking a lot more about the frontline manager having so much more HR responsibility, right? So much more than just their day to day being functionally experts, but also being leaders. And then on top of it, now they're kind of being HR. Like, do you think that's the answer? Is empowering them to sort of be that frontline sentiment tester to be able to act and give them the solutions to be able to help employees in that way? Or do you think it's a bigger push that has to come from, like you said, top down, bottom up sort of holistic way?
There are a few answers to this depending
Yeah.
on the urgency of help that is needed to get to those frontline workers
Yeah.
and how big that company is. Because we know in a huge company, it can be tricky to get top down action. It can take some time when you know as a manager that your people need some help now. So I always take the approach of lead from where you are. Really take a moment to look at what you can do. How are you? How are the people that you are managing? If you are a people manager, you might not be able to wait for it to come top down. You might just need some skills for your team, for your unique case in that moment. And if you are looking at that, there's some things you can do. One is, you can lead by example. If you start creating some really healthy boundaries about time to stop at night, helping your team get to dinner on time, really humanizing timelines. I kind of love to talk about that, but it's a whole in-depth area based on the technology that we're working with at the moment. Really, there's some things that managers are not that aware of that I'm seeing are creating some burnout issues. One, which is really interesting, is a lot of frontline workers or wider teams are not taking their vacation time because they are living in
Mm.
fear of
Yep.
not being credited for the project they are working on if they take 2 weeks off. That may
Yeah.
affect their entire trajectory or their bonus or their promotion for the year. And people are not taking their time off.
Yeah.
You know,
That is a problem.
isn't that funny? I really thought we were past that, it has been something symptomatic since I've been in the workforce, and there's so much messaging to the contrary, and yet that stigma is still there.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it's a very American thing, if you want my opinion. I feel like other nationalities that I have worked with in the past have been much more culturally and even just maybe even legally more forward on making sure people take vacations, right? I remember I used to work with some South Africans, and those guys and ladies they would go off for a month, and I thought, man, if you did that in America, like you couldn't take a month off. That's crazy, but that's totally normal for them, and so that's great that you bring that up because I've talked to someone recently about this in their organization. They were playing around with the unlimited PTO concept, and they were finding that people were taking less time off after
Yeah.
deploying that. So like what's the answer to say something like that? How do you get people to take time off? Is that just a cultural thing, or what do you do?
As a manager, you can do things at the beginning of the year, or there's language and then there's action that you can apply.
Yeah.
You can help your team like schedule their holidays and actually, be on them to make sure they're taking their time off. One, because if your team are resting, they are coming back stronger, healthier, more alert, faster to solve problems, more creative. Their brains and their bodies are rested, and we know that from basics of being an athlete. An athlete's not sprinting the whole time because
Yeah.
that would burn them out.
Oh yeah.
And so the same thing applies here. It's like, how do you create environments of brilliance and foster the best possible work and the best possible outcomes? And there are obviously things that you can take. Now, you did mention the word legal, and I think that's really important because we are also seeing a really interesting wave right now of the right to disconnect law. And I've been following this really closely because I think it's a shame that we're getting to this point. It makes me sad. It makes my heart sad
Yeah.
that we're getting to this point now where a law is going to have to come in to protect those frontline workers, and that sucks. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but 3 days ago it got introduced into California, so it's on the table, so to speak. It got introduced into Australia. It hasn't been passed yet, but it's sitting on the table in Australia last month. And obviously, it's already been passed. And to your point, European countries already live with this law in place. In
Yeah.
Italy, Germany, some areas of Spain, a part of Canada. So this is what we're looking at. And to your point, Julie, we were like, I thought we were past this.
Yeah.
We're not. And so we need to kind of work out together collectively, how do you want your company to, if you have to be confronted by the right to disconnect law, great companies have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Nothing. Because they already have that as part of their culture. They are living it and breathing it. They are successful. They are aligned with what their goals and values are out to the world, is aligned with how the staff and team are feeling internally. And nothing to worry about. But the companies who haven't been working like that are going to probably come up with some confronting issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think employees fundamentally now? I think younger generations do, but do you think the workforce fundamentally is looking to their employers to help them? I mean, I think about like the other day. Well, not the other day. Recently, I was at Money 2020 this year or last year in fall, and one of the statistics that I was listening to, and one of the things they were giving was the correlation between your credit score and your health, and where lower
Huh.
credit scores tend to sometimes correlate to higher diseases and because of a lack of means to things and education and food quality and all of these things, right? And I just that never left me. I was like, wow, like I take things like that for granted, having a good credit score. I was always taught I have to have a good credit score, right? Keep your credit score good. And so luckily I've always been able to do that, thankfully. And but not everyone has, and not everyone has started in the same position education wise or means in order to have that opportunity. But like that's something really small that I don't know that we all sort of think of when we look at our peers, and so they're bringing that to work. So do you think employees are kind of looking to employers now and sort of expecting this help?
When you say help, what are you meaning within that word?
Well, I don't know. I mean, resources, right? I'm coming to work. I've got these challenges with my pay. Maybe I'm not like earned wage access has become huge, right, in America
Mm.
for a lot of frontline workers that are on sort of the lower end of the scale. Healthcare, particularly for home healthcare, where it's capped by government rates for pay. And the fact that we've got inflation going crazy, right? You've seen earned wage access become something
Mm.
employees are asking, do you have this, do you offer that, right? Early access to my wages. You've seen different benefits people are coming to employers for because of maybe their needs in their family or whatever. And I say benefit loosely because there's a lot of things that you could label a benefit, but I wonder if employees are coming to work and thinking or expecting their employers are going to assist them. Is that expectation growing?
I think there's different levels to that
Yeah.
expectation as well. Like if you are a company looking to attract the top talent in the world, you're trying to make your package look as attractive as possible,
Oh,
right?
sure, right, competing.
Competing, yeah. And so this is where we are seeing a lot of really specialist benefits and guaranteed we will help you grow. Growth is a part of our culture. We have areas where you can be promoted. We have different things, we can offer from an educational point of view. These are all things to, really align with whatever your values and are as a company, to
Yeah.
really kind of bolster this great working environment, which is a huge plus for the company as far as success and productivity and loyalty versus, just please just show up and eat your lunch and leave.
Yeah.
Um, you can start to see, where do people want to go and stay and be and have that growth opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, I don't know that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I don't know that employers necessarily altogether have to spend money or buy a solution to fix some of their problems. For
Hmm.
example, we've been working on a very sentiment based analysis in the payroll industry where commonly the operation has been somewhat less than in the organization and is increasingly being shown to have so much more impact, as we always knew, than they have maybe been given credit for in the past. And what I'm finding in that sentiment as I'm reading between the lines and I'm looking at some of the data is a lot of these practitioners just fundamentally want to be respected. They want to be heard. They want to be given the opportunity to do the best that they can, but they're not being afforded that. They're not. It's not understood what they do. It's not respected. They aren't invested in. And you can see the tone of burnout, like the signs of burnout across the industry. And we're losing people, right? I mean, in every sector, we're losing good talent. to technology. Technology is scaring, I think, some people. You've got a lot of media telling the world we don't need HR and payroll anymore because now we've got AI, which is insane. So,
Mm.
it's like there's this perfect storm that's kind of brewing out there that I think, how, like I said, like, what do you do as an employer, right? Like, where do you begin? Do you need a roadmap, right? Should there be a wellness roadmap in the organization, right? We talk about roadmaps for everything else. Do you need a wellness roadmap as an employer now?
There's a few things to unpack in there. I loved your
Yeah.
point. I loved your point about you don't always need to be going to buy something as a
Yeah.
solution to plug in. I 100% agree with that, because that's culture, right? You don't buy
Yeah.
culture.
Right. Yeah. Just
Culture,
listen, right? Yeah.
yeah, culture is that you are consistently creating an environment that you say you're going to create. All the
Yeah.
values and ethics are being felt internally through every level of staff, from top to bottom, all the way through. And that's really important. And that takes work, and that takes humans, not,
Yeah.
not
Oh yeah.
AI. That's human interaction, building human relationships, genuinely checking on each other. And to your point about a roadmap, I get nervous about that term only because I don't want wellness to be separated as a new roadmap. I want it to be part of the way that we are daily thinking about our processes and our systems, and because those are the things that are having a daily effect on the people that you work with. And I
Yeah.
keep coming back to this one, really, and it's only a tiny part, but I love humanizing timelines. Like, I will sit down with a team that is really struggling, and I will grab a timeline that they have worked on before, and I'm like, talk me through this. What worked? What didn't work? And especially in innovation right now, there is a bit of an issue where we have some people who are in charge of the timeline. So you have the one person who's going to put together this entire innovation timeline from beginning to end. They don't know, and I don't think it's on them to know the nuances of every single part of the new technology, and maybe 5 pieces of technology that are coming into this timeline. For them to know the exact nuances and how to map that out properly, it's not on them to do that. Otherwise, they would be the best technologists in the world. But it is on them to reach out and spend some time with the leads of each team to say, how much time do you need in this timeline? What am I not thinking about? How can I make this better for you for your achieve brilliance, so that you're not rushed? Help me build this out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the biggest thing I also say is that once let's lay the whole thing out together. Now let's take one huge step back, and hand on heart, now looking at it, do you think we can get people home for dinner on time each night in this timeline? Do you think we can
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
I,
You're
I
you're
think,
talking about making these things norms, new
Yeah,
cultural norms. Yeah.
every day. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
I
your
love that.
phrase, Kaz, humanizing the timeline or humanizing our work. And in fact, when I think about, the way that you just portrayed that, to me, it almost became less about what we're hearing called wellness programs now, and all the little different ways we can have an impact on the personal lives of our employees, and more about work forecasting and
Mm.
planning, resource planning types of exercises, and that oftentimes comes down to, do you have the right amount of resources, the right timelines in place, and if not, there's a real business cost to to adding enough resources to do that, right?
Yeah.
And yet, what's more difficult to quantify is the real business cost of burnout or overextension or under resourcing, and leaning instead on employees to just make that gap whole, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey there, I'm Tim Boris, host of the Working Well podcast, where business strategy meets human sustainability. If you're an executive, a leader, or change maker ready to ditch burnout, build thriving teams, and drive real results, this is your next must listen. Tune in on the Work Defined Network or at timboris.com/podcast.
Hey, it's Bob Pulver, host of you podcast. Human-centric AI, AI-driven transformation, hiring for skills and potential, dynamic workforce ecosystems, responsible innovation. These are some of the themes my expert guests and I chat about, and we certainly geek out on the details. Nothing too technical. I hope you check it out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean that kind of makes me think, Kaz. Like, does so we've seen things like chief people officer, chief culture officer. Do we need chief wellness officer? Do we need some sort of wellness referee or a leader in the organization? Is that coming? Are we already having that?
We already have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We already have chief wellbeing officer. I've seen other phrases of that, which is chief of hearts, chief of
Oh.
people. Chief of
Yeah.
people is also, people are these are the welfare of our human beings. So I started seeing a lot more of those titles this year in some of the bigger HR conferences. Again, makes me happy because it's all part of what we do every single day, to what you guys were
Yeah.
saying before. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is about building a culture of not just inclusivity but caring, right? The humanization, as you pointed out. It's not, it doesn't cost you anything to care about people, right? It doesn't cost anything to ask people how they're doing, and try to help them. So, yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. What do
Yeah.
you
And
what do you
okay.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Even just little questions I find can be really helpful, especially as a manager. Is we might be, how's your mental health, or are you really stressed out? And that's a really
Yeah.
a hard question for a frontline worker to want to answer to their manager. So I
Yeah.
find little things can just be humanizing the questions we ask. Like one is in a morning meeting is like, hey, how was your sleep?
Yeah. It's a great yeah.
Did you sleep?
I
Did you
don't know.
sleep well?
I'm applying the do I really want to know
I know. I know.
criteria in my head right now.
But
Uh,
the thing is, if you just ask someone how was their sleep,
yeah.
you're going to get a real, true understanding of what's going on in that person's life. So
That's a
you can,
great
so
point.
you can help lead and understand where they are at that day.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think has like what do you think is the biggest wellness problem we have right now? Is it the burnout? Is it mental? I mean, and can
Oof.
something like AI help with that sort of thing?
The biggest, our daily
Like what do you,
routines. I think
yeah.
the way that we are operating on a daily basis and how we truly bring in welfare and wellness into that, because it's the daily wearing us down that's affecting us, right? And we're seeing that
Yeah.
from stress, or from a timeline that was poorly managed, or from resources that were pulled because the financial forecast is wrong. Like, we're constantly getting pulled at to do more within a less amount of everything. We've got this element of it was always there a little bit, but COVID kind of magnified it more, which is an element of always being on, or always being able to be available or to reach out. And that goes on both sides. We're both guilty of it,
Yeah.
because sometimes we attach a lot of our self-worth to where the money is coming from. uh it's what we do as human beings, and so we've got this element of always being on or reachable or wanting to solve something. But I mean, we're in an amazing time with AI,
Right?
an
It's
amazing
great.
time. And what I love about it is anyone on my team, I can, help them take care of all the administrative tasks that I think are getting in the way of their true talents, and use them to do all the really important human jobs that we need to do, which will be building great relationships,
Yeah.
client relationships, creativity, innovation, problem solving across dynamic departments, like a complex problem solving across all the departments. These are the things that we can't give to AI.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, there's such, and those are the things that people really make them feel alive and valued. And they perk up, and they've got an incredible role. But sometimes all those administration tasks can feel like a heavy weight, because you just want to get to the thing that makes you feel great, that you're good at, and yet there's
Yeah.
all of this all this other stuff that we need to get through sometimes.
Oh, I feel it myself. I have a very creative job, and I love the creativity part, and I don't enjoy sometimes the minutia of what I have to do around that. And you're right. It's like I want to be the creator. I don't want to just be doing the minutia. That's where we can get the AI to help. But do you worry that just with AI coming in the way it is, that we're going to dehuman work in some way, to where wellness will become an even bigger problem? Like, that's one thing I worry about. Like, are we going to create this environment where people are kind of, symbiotically working with technology alone, where there's maybe not as much human interaction anymore? I don't know. I mean, do you think that's going to add to new problems in some ways?
My biggest concern is that we will use AI to lift all this incredible administration weight off us. Throw that to the side. Woo!
Yeah.
And we get some time back, and we're like, ooh. But we then fill all that with more stuff, that we don't pause for a moment and truly understand how AI can give us some time back. As human beings, we just want to stuff that full of more work or more things and go faster, 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 because that's the evolution of human beings. That's how we've been made. And I want to work out ways where we can just stop for a minute and I almost want to daily write down how much time AI is saving me and be like,
Yeah.
wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
Okay, now give me a percentage. Now I'm going to give myself a rule, which is a percentage of that time. I'm going to make sure that I park over here for my bolognese time. And my bolognese time will
Yes.
be anything that makes me feel whole and nourished and a human being connected to the world. And
You,
then,
yeah.
yeah, you go.
I was gonna say, do you think it can rebound? Like the idea of work-life balance has been I know in America we've been chasing it my whole career, right? And I mean, do you think AI is the path to that? Maybe it can be that opportunity for us to be more productive, to be more effective, to have more time to return. And will we return it to our families, or will we just turn it around and pile more work on people? That's one of the
Well,
things that can happen.
I think AI is a part of the puzzle that can truly help.
Yeah.
It can truly help if we use it right and we look at it as a tool to remove, these huge administrative hours and hours and hours, and we get back to the things that we're really good at. It can 100% help with that. I do think as human beings, we naturally want to just fill the time with other things. And I think that's the
Yeah.
discipline. That's where it comes back to being on us. We talked about
Yes.
before what's on the employee and what's on the employer. On the employee is like carve off that time and thank you, AI. This is like for giving me this extra couple of hours to go and I don't know, walk in nature, see the ocean, spend
Yeah.
have a beer with your dad, like. But we need to. That's where we need to get strong, and we
Yeah.
need to have our own boundaries because we tend to not do that. And so that's the two sides of it, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm guilty of it. I'll tell you, secret time. I don't do a good job, and I haven't over my career of balancing my work and my personal life. I'll admit that. It's something I still work on, and I know my habits. If I get more time at work, I'm going to do more work. Again, I'm a creative, so that's time is money to me, just like it is everyone. But I have to. I think it's almost like we have to be re-educated and retrained in some ways, right? I'm from a
Yeah,
generation that probably came up in kind of the old way of doing things, and I think there are a lot of ways in which, and I was from the military, so we had very different, viewpoints on how much load you took on and what you did, and the level of pushing yourself to the limit. But I know I have to re-educate myself and try to do that. But I'm worried that are we just going to end up saying, oh, you've got all this time now because the AI is doing this. Let's just pile more on you, or are people really going to turn and invest that time in themselves? I don't know. We'll have to see. It
yeah.
remains to be
As
seen.
a creative, Pete, because I am a creative as well. I have questions around our current structure. It's not truly conducive to great creativity in some of the structures that workplaces place on us because from
Oh yeah,
being in the flow of create, like if I'm writing or I'm concepting, jumping into a meeting every 30 minutes is the work delays my entire process. So
yeah,
there's that. I think there's a whole conversation at some point just around how what does it look like for a creative brain to truly flourish because that's
yeah,
different than
yeah,
it's a totally different process and
yep.
we get squished into things that I don't think work.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, like one of the things being able to work for myself, like one of the things I've found that's been incredibly freeing for me is the ability to work when and as I want to, and
Mhm.
not because of I want to do other things with my time, but I like to follow my brain and my
Yeah,
motivation for where it is, and I find I'm more productive and far more creative when I allow myself to flow, if you will, through things versus maybe being forced into a 9 to 5, this first, this thing first, this thing next, this thing third. And I think the more that employers can give employees that flexibility and autonomy to shape their work, it is going to lead to them being more productive and more capable of
yeah,
having that effectiveness to be more have more time to invest back in themselves. So, and maybe even
uh,
happiness. So, yeah,
yeah. There's one thing I always ask as well, which I think is a huge factor to burnout that we don't talk about often, is to work out who on your team is a morning person and who is a night person.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
to your point about following where your brain is at its most productive, I'm a morning person, like ridiculous morning person. I'm up at
Yeah.
5. I can solve my biggest
Same.
strategic creative problems from 5 to 8 a.m. That is
Yes.
my golden time. I will machine it. But if
Yeah.
you're trying to make me work from like 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., I almost want to burst into tears because my brain is like, I'm off.
Yeah.
It just can't, doesn't work. But when I was in my advertising days, I would need to know on my team who out of all the designers and copywriters, who are night people and who are morning people. Because if you're trying to force something to make someone work in an area where their brain is not at its best, that's a major way to speed up burnout for that person.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I'm very much the same way. I can relate. I'm a military guy from the past, so I have a very early morning, early morning
Yeah.
routine. As they say in the Marines, it gives you a psychological advantage over the enemy being up that early. So I don't know if that's true, but it does. But I'm the same way, right? I'm so like a lightning rod of
Yeah.
capability at the very earliest hours of the day, to where you're right. Later in the day, I have less. I'm willing to do things like go through my emails and clean things up for the next day versus trying to be creative and work. And the problem is, I think we try to force employees into this box, right? Because this is the box that works for us and this is what we do. And I understand that some jobs you can't be as flexible as you'd like to be, but I think the more you can create that comfortable culture, supportive culture, comfortable environment where you can create autonomy for yourself, I think you're going to get a lot more out of people
Yeah.
than necessarily just forcing them into a box that way. So,
Great.
Hey friends, Marnie Robbins here, host of Vibe Makers, a podcast now on the Work Defined Network. Look, we all know workplace culture doesn't come from a slide deck. Gross. It comes from people. So on Vibe Makers, I talk to the folks shaping the experience of work from the inside out. You know, the HR and people ops folk, founders, leaders, and misfits building culture through small bets, big beliefs, and a whole lot of trial and error. No fluff. Well, maybe a little fluff, but mainly just candid talk about what happens when you stop duct taping your culture together. Come check us out. Listen to Vibe Makers wherever you get your podcasts.
so Kaz, one of the things I want to ask you about is like just the shift to hybrid work, right? We've got a lot of people now at home. We saw a lot of challenges with mental wellness and childcare and all kinds of things during COVID. But now that most people have kind of come back to the office, there's still a lot of more remote than there was. We see more and more companies kind of taking these hardline stances against it, and some are all in, some are all out, some are somewhere in the middle. Like, what has that done to wellness, and what do you think? Like, what do you say to an employer who is in a hybrid environment that has employees disconnected like that and remote? How do you manage your wellness differently than a traditional workforce?
The business side of me, because I get this question a lot, I help a lot of companies in this space. And if a company comes to me and says, hey, we want to enforce a return to work policy, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay. And I just stop for a minute and I just say, can you just talk me through the reasons why?
Yeah.
Is that, have you got some clear data on the productivity has gone down and you're not hitting your goals and it's not working? Because that's great. Let's work with that and have a look at that and dive into that and understand where that's not working. If you are coming at it just from an iron fist and we have real estate in these buildings and it's costing us a ton of money and we need everyone, and there's one person at the top of the company who's like, everyone has to come back to work because I said so, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Like, those are two very, like, what side are we talking about? And because if you're going to start, I think it should always be based on what's really working, what's being productive, what's the health of the team. Because if you do start forcing people to come back, you're probably going to lose some people, because, it goes case by case for the individual as well. Some people really want to come back to work. That works for them. Leaving the house and going to an office may be a fantastic solution for someone who has children or just needs that focus and enjoys being in that environment. That's great.
Yeah.
But that's not for everybody. It's not a one size fits all anymore. And because we've had a taste for it, we know what we want as individuals. And to your
Yeah.
point, even asking the question about morning person and night person, because the way you can flourish and get the most done, it's the same thing with questions with remote versus hybrid versus full-time on site.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of what do you want to be as a company and as a leader? Do you want to truly understand what works for the people for the success of the company, or do you just want to drive an ultimatum?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see the hard line in the sand being all in or all out a good idea. I think you got to take it case by case, roll by roll.
Mm-hmm.
And why not? Right? Right. Like, look, we've said this a lot on the podcast. I say this all the time. Flexibility is what's going to win in the battle for skills and talent. You've got to be as flexible as possible. And the more I think that you can meet people with opportunities that help them achieve their goals and fit their unique needs and their lifestyle and their whatever they're bringing to work, I think you're going to be much better off in terms of enduring and maintaining and nurturing that talent. So,
Yeah,
yeah, no, but it's look, there's a lot. Employers have so much on their plates now. My
yeah,
wife is an HR practitioner, and I hear some of the things she's dealing with, and she's not in the most mature organization, and the frustration that she has. It's like what would you say to an employer who's kind of paralyzed? Because I feel like that's what I would say her company is, right? They've got all these things they'd love to do, and they're very forward, maybe too friendly of an organization, and need to almost have some a little bit more rigidity in some areas. But what do you tell an employer who is kind of overwhelmed or maybe just paralyzed with wellness right now? Like, where do you start? What would be your advice?
well, it almost sometimes feels like HR needs HR, right? Like,
Right? Yeah, yeah,
I heard that a lot this year. I hung out with a lot of senior people, and I was just like, they're going through it. To your point,
yeah, yeah,
uh, from all the things to juggle and what to prioritize. As a business owner, you're going to need to work out what the balance is between really understanding what people need to get to their goals that you've set, because there can be a ton of things that you want to do, but if they're not truly aligning to, hey, we've set this, we've got these goals as a team, we're going to get here, these are the three things we think we these are the three things we're going to be doing to get us there, because you need to do a couple of things amazingly well rather than doing 10 things and it all being fragmented and a bit of a mess.
yeah, yeah. Do you
So
think HR
pick
is qualified for this?
qualified for what part?
Just like we talked about the wellness officer, right? Like, do you think HR needs outside help? Like, do you think they're qualified, or do they even have the capacity to take on more? Right? I mean, there's
Good
so
point.
many things they're dealing with.
It's a really good point, and again, that comes back to that specific team structure, because I
Yeah.
am seeing a few things. One is there's an HR team structure. They are dealing with an influx of additional parts of their role that they've never had to experience, and that's not really being considered, and that's tricky because those people are burning out.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing some teams who are making some really big leaps forward, to your point, with a chief wellness officer on board. And now I'm also seeing things of like chief AI officer come in to take
Hmm.
off some of the weight and to
Interesting.
have an anchor, because all these HR teams are getting all the AI questions as well.
Yeah. Well, it's falling in their lap, right?
It's,
Privacy and yeah,
yeah, and like they need help. They need some support. So you need to take a breath and look at who's on the team. Where is everything heading? What assistance do we need? What extra training do we need? Is this now adding too much to this individual person's role? Do we need to create a new role?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. Do you what do you find are common characteristics of companies who do wellness really well? I would imagine culture, right? Pretty obviously, but what else do you see as far as like the key characteristics when you're working with companies like, hey, company is really nailing it. This company's doing terrible. What are the characteristics you see? Any
Clarity,
commonalities?
yeah, clarity and empowerment, I
Yeah.
find. Really clear, to your point about the company we were just talking about. They are really clear about what their brand is to the outside world, and all those ethics and values are definitely felt by the internal team. There's no disconnect there, and those are the super companies. They have worked out, because what happens when your brand, your amazing values and ethics that you broadcast to the world is not felt internally at the culture, and there's a mismatch, that's when you really start to see people disengage. You don't get as much loyalty. You don't get as many people who want to really go the extra mile to hit that goal that you are all doing together, because they feels a bit of, there's not as much trust that has
Yeah.
been built internally. And when there's not trust that the thing that they signed up for is the thing that they're turning up to every day, things go a little sideways.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see that with whistleblowers, and you see that with data leaks, and you see that with, like, that's just one element of that coming of that misalignment,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
No,
know. But
absolutely.
yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. So look, I know we talked a little bit. There's so many things I want to keep asking you, but I know we're kind of running long here. Look, we talked a little bit about AI, right? We talked a little bit about what's sort of happening out there with employers. But what do you see as next, and what do you hope for? Like, what's coming for wellness? Where do you think we are wellness wise, 2030, right? And what's your hopes for all of this?
I think what I am seeing, and definitely from some of the bigger conferences I've been to this week, the big Transform one that I went to in Vegas in March. I don't know if either of you have been to that.
I didn't
I
make that one this year. No.
I really enjoyed it because it really did give me the full landscape of where things are heading.
Yeah.
And my prediction, and very optimistic, and I think this is where we're going, and this is exactly where I'll be pushing it, is really wellness becoming this integral part of the employee experience, and future benefits to really dig deep about what's working and what's not, and not band-aid approaches, but real preventative
Yeah.
approaches. Mental, physical, social aspects, but yeah, moving away from reactive healthcare to proactive wellness strategies. That is what I'm feeling. That is definitely what I saw at Transform. I was most excited. I was like a kid in the candy store when I went to walk through all the exhibitors. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And
Yeah.
an example of that would be little things that we haven't been talking about in the workplace that cause burnout. Grief.
Oh, yeah.
Grief in the
Yeah.
workplace has not really been addressed,
Yeah.
especially in America. Only 2023 was it enforced that employer has to give 5 days off for bereavement leave.
Yeah.
That only happened last year. And or I know personally, when you lose someone close to you, the logistics
Yep.
of mapping of unpacking that whole thing. Like, I think
Yeah.
on wow. And I found one startup called Elaine at Transform, and I burst into tears. I was like, this is amazing, because they've just specialized a benefit on the full logistics and support a person needs when someone close to them passes,
Yeah.
because it takes about an average of 400 like logistical hours to process what happens when you need the things you need to do when a close person dies.
Oh, yeah.
And they're still coming to work and they're trying to focus, but they've got this entire bereavement unpacking, paperwork, lawyers, like everything to do, and they're burning out because of grief.
Yeah, yeah, that one hits close to home. I can tell you personally, I worked next to my grandmother in a hospital when I was taking care of her and her estate at the time, and my employer was very helpful with me. But that's the level of inappropriate balance that you can see that I was talking about. I have, and
Mm.
yeah, we've all been there. But you know what I noticed? I would tell you about. That's a great point, because we all don't digest that the same way. We don't absorb loss the exact same way, and what we're dealing with at home sometimes. I mean, even domestic violence. I've seen a number of things about domestic violence baggage kind of coming, if you will, air quotes, coming to work, often with women, in particular, that is really, really tough. And so all of these things, right? There's so many little variables I feel like that we're dealing with today that are compounded by technology and compounded by our society and compounded by norms that we've allowed, particularly here in America, about how we treat workers. That I think that's part of it. We've got to change the demand for saying, look, we can't treat people this way, right? We're not doing right by our workforce, and we're burning them out. We're not productive. People don't want to work at certain jobs anymore at certain places, and that's just awful, right? It shouldn't be that way.
Mm.
So yeah. So my hope is too, right, that we can make some progress, and I'm hoping that AI and some of this great technology that we're having is going to be that opportunity for us. So,
Yeah.
well, this has been great, Kaz. Thank you so much. Anything that we didn't hit on? I'm sure there's tons of angles we could have taken with this. Is there anything you'd like to add or just, maybe opine on that we didn't get to touch on here?
I think there's a lot covered there. Like from a surface level, obviously
Yeah.
there's huge depth in all those topics. But I think my big thing is for anyone listening is just take a look around your team, check on them.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to tell when someone's burning out. You can get a feel for it, and hand on heart, ask: Are we getting people to the dinner table on time?
Yeah.
Because
I
that
love that.
does seem to annihilate a lot.
Yeah. No, I love it. And take your vacation, right? We
Take your
need people to take their
vacation.
vacation. But you're right. I mean, it's the little things, like I try to do this habit now of I try to check on somebody in my circle every day, right? I try to say, how you doing? Do you need anything, right? And I hope that it might stimulate someone to ask someone else, and it's
I
just
love
little
that.
things I just think that you can do to. I learned that from a celebrity, a comedian that was talking about how they do that, and I thought that's such a great, easy, cheap, free thing, that we can all
Yeah.
do just to show that we do care. And how are you doing? Are you all right? Do you need any help? So look, if we all look out for each other and we start acting, to your point, going back to the beginning about humanizing the way we do things and put it through that lens, I think we'll come with better responses, better outcomes, and better, hopefully better feelings for everyone, in the workplace, and better wellness. So
Yeah.
this is awesome. Thank you so much, Cass. Listen, where can
Okay.
I'm going to share all of your links, but where would you mostly love to have people direct to connect with you? I know you speak a lot. You do a lot of great work. Where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I've got bolognesephilosophy.com is that's where the philosophy lives for anyone who wants to go there. And my speaker website's also Maurice-O'Leary.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well, obviously Maurice-O'Leary.com, and I'll have more announcements there coming soon. I've got a speaker partnership series with a physician coming up for corporates to
Oh,
really
awesome.
dive deep into a full wellness framework to really help people. So I'll be making some more announcements about that on LinkedIn for anyone who that can help.
Oh, very cool. I'd love to check that out. I love frameworks, so we'll keep an eye on that, and I'll make sure I share all of these links for you. And yeah, check out Kaz if you can see her speak. It's really worth your time. And thank you so much, Kaz. This has really been awesome.
Thank
Julie,
you.
what do you got going on? Anything? I know you got a survey running out there. I don't know if it'll be still
I
running by the time this comes out, but what's going on there?
I do. We've
Yeah.
been doing some micro surveys this year, just because the big meaty ones can be such an effort to pull together. So right now, I have a survey out on AI, intelligent automation in HR, and I don't know if we've posted the link, Pete, on our on any of our episodes, but I'll share it with you.
Yep.
It's literally 15 questions. So
Beautiful.
and of course, you have your survey going on.
Yep, it's actually done. I'm working on the results, and we'll be showing that. You and I will be at the Global Payroll, or excuse me, I will be at the Payroll Congress showing that. Global
That's
Payroll
right.
Week is the week before that. That's coming up, but we'll be doing unveiling that at Payroll Congress and leading a very interesting executive summit going on there. So if
Summit
you're
Day.
interested in that,
That's
let
right.
us know. We can get you an invite. It's private. But what else, Julie? Anything else going on?
Oh, lots of client work, which is where my heart is, as you know.
Oh
So,
yeah,
so I love it. It keeps me close to not only the vendors. I'll never be as close to the vendors as you are, but it keeps me very close to what clients are doing and where they're going and what they're using and what they're interested in and what maybe is more marketing and its time hasn't come yet. So,
yeah, awesome.
it's my favorite part of what I do.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, look, ladies, it's been great. Cass, thank you so much for joining us. Julie, everyone take care, and we'll be back very soon.